Hi, everybody. Welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name's Chris Yee.
I'm Roy Canning.
I'm Wendy Yee.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
And today we're looking at this Bees in Espacio. Yes. Bees in Space, baby. This is Apiary from first-time designer, first published designer, Connie Vogelman. Art by Quanche Moria, this fantastic look to it. And Stonemaier Games, of course, tend to make a bit of a splash as they release. This is Bees in Space. What could you want more, I suppose? We're going to go ahead and show you how this one plays, and then we'll give you our thoughts.
Apiary is a worker placement game where you have these bees that are your workers and they progressively level up throughout the game until they become level 4, and then they will actually hibernate. They will no longer become available and you'll get to get some extra bonus action by hibernating. In the game, you take one turn at a time. So you have your active and available bees up here. You'll go ahead and take an action on one of these little bee spaces. If someone's already there, you bump them out. They will level up or hibernate. This is level 4, so we would hibernate. And then you get to take that space. The other person gets to take it back. If it was a smaller level, they would level up, and then they'd get to use it immediately on a following turn. When you first look at this board, it's a little bit busy, but there are different action spaces. So this explore action over here, this allows you to get resources, explore some new planets. And whenever you have a level 4 queen, you get a bonus of whatever planet you move this on. Now, the advanced track over here, this allows you to get these little honeycomb things that go into your player board over here, and you collect them and they do various things. The red ones are one-time bonus, the 2 are ongoing benefits, and then the green is actually where you store your resources, and the top part is some sort of income when you take a retrieve action. You have the grow space over here. This is how you get more bees and how you expand your board. You have these little pieces over here that you can add to your board and expand it out so that you can grow larger space hives. The carve over here, these are end game multipliers and they're very expensive to get. They cost a 4 level bee, and then they also cost honey, which is the most expensive resources. Speaking of resources, you can come here and you can do conversion actions. You can do conversions up to the level that your bee is. So if you put a 4 over here, you can do 4 of these conversions. And or you can do dances. So these dances basically allow you to create your own conversion. And when you do so, you get to move up on the queen track. This is just extra points at the end of the game for moving up the track. As you can see, they're nice little end game points there. And it creates new conversions so that maybe you can get honey cheaper or you can get points more easily throughout the game. Research over here, this is where you get cards. These cards have some sort of one-time use ability, or they can be used as a wild basic resource. And finally, if you don't want to use them for the top part, you can eventually tuck them under your board for end game scoring. It's pretty hard to tuck them, but there are different ways to do it. You also can unlock new places to place the cards as you add in these little frames. Then we finally have this hibernation comb. This is where you put your workers when they go to hibernate. You take your little disc, you put them out, you gain one sort of a one-time bonus of some sort, so that would be moving up on the queen track. And then you also have a little area majority game at the end of the game for points at the bottom. So those are generally what the actions are. So once again, this is a game of collecting stuff, doing fun things on your board, bumping people out, having positive interaction. And the way that you get points is from this queen track, these hibernation comb things down here, the carve spaces that you have on your board, and then every tile has little bits of points that they are worth as well. So that's generally and very briefly how you play Apiary.
All right, so you can see there, this is a good-looking game and everything. I like the components. I like the setting, even though I feel the bees part a lot. Like, thematically, what do you guys think about this one?
It is funny because I feel like you're building a beehive in space because you've got the little, like, hexy tiles.
I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I really enjoy space themes in general, for the most part, but I just think, like, all of the stuff that the game has is very charming. I love the little bee, like, dice meeple things. They're not dice because you don't really roll them, but, like, the fact that they have different sides where they're going to go into hibernation and things like that is pretty interesting and cool. And it is a very strange like theme of like bees in space, but I don't really have much room to talk about that because I have bees in space and other things. So,
Sure.
but yeah, I really kind of enjoy like the theme and the aesthetics of the game.
I don't think theme is the selling point of this game, other than I think it's cool, right? I mean, that's really all it's about, because I don't think it feels terribly thematic. I think they did a good job of trying to integrate theme through, making things that are related to bees with the resources, like wax and honey and the dances. I thought that, those types of things were a neat touch, but I never felt like I was really doing bee things necessarily. But I prefer this to a generic space theme, or just bees, honestly. There's just something about the juxtaposition. It's the same thing with Lords of Hellas, to make a very odd comparison. Lords of Hellas could have just been, an ancient Greek game, but they stuck them in mechs. Why? I don't know, but I thought it was cool.
What's funny is Camilla's not in this review, and I don't think she's even played it, but she loved the cover from what I understood.
Who doesn't love the cover,
but then
honestly?
as soon as I set up the game, she just kind of like stopped and she was like, oh. Like the cover is so beautiful, and the bee worker dice looking things are so cool, but the actual like layout of the board is very Euro-y looking.
It's definitely very Euro looking. It's very mechanical of like, oh, you have this over here to get resources, you're collecting these tiles, you're building up the stuff. But I don't know. There's just something about it that I don't know what's wrong with me, but like when it has a space theme on it, even if it's bees in space, it like makes me like it a little bit more.
You're instantly in?
I'm instantly in.
I do like the bee theming of it, though, because I definitely feel that part. Mike said he didn't feel it as much. I disagree. It's all about the bees, right? It's the space part I think is like, it's fine. A good excuse for fantastic Quanche Moria artwork.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, the bee, the life cycle, the hibernate, all the stuff that
Right,
you kind of
yeah,
mentioning earlier, I dig that, and I appreciate that. I think that the idea of the leveling up the workers is, while not the first time that we've ever seen this game, you
Right.
can make some direct comparisons. Be like, oh, that's like Teotihuacan. But I think the way that the workers level up and the different action spaces benefit from having different level workers, that's a nice rewarding cycle, and so it does feel like my bees are getting better at what they're doing. I've got a 4. Oh, I better use this one wisely.
Yeah, the timing of everything is extremely interesting. It's like, okay, I need the timing of this to get this tile, to let me do this thing for free over here. It's like, where do I use my 4? Because the 4 abilities are really strong if you're able to trigger them in the right place at the right time. And that also depends on what the other players are doing. This game is pretty daggone interactive, You have to pay attention to like what tiles people are taking and where they're going with their stuff. It's like, oh, they moved it over here on for the resources, but I really need to get that tile down there if I have a 4, because it's going to get me to be able to do this thing for free, which will combo with this thing if they don't grab that first. There's a lot of things you have to think about with what the other players are doing during this. As long as also with when you get to 4, you get to go into the hibernation, which is the whole area control part of the board as well. It's like, do I put out my 4 earlier so that way I can jump on that faster, or do I wait until this thing is there? It's a very interesting like how the interaction works in this game.
I think, this is essentially an efficiency puzzle game, and I really like those. But like you mentioned, Roy, it's an efficiency puzzle where you cannot just focus on only what you're doing to be efficient. You have to react to what other players are doing, and the timing elements that you mentioned, I think, is the biggest strength of the game. The idea that you really do have to plan turns ahead, right? There is a fair amount of strategy going on. There's also tactics, because you have to be able to pivot compared to what other people are doing, and you can never assume that a spot that you're looking for is necessarily going to be there. Although you can bump workers, it's not like you're necessarily kept out. It just changes your decision space a bit. So I like that kind of mixture of efficiency and timing and interaction.
For me, the interaction is something that I enjoy in this, and I don't always love heavy interactive games, but I really enjoy positive interaction, and I love that bumping mechanism. I love that so much. And in a lower player count game, you don't see it quite as much as you do in a higher player count game. And so this is one I feel like benefits more from having more players, so that you can bump each other out all the time.
And that's expected, but they do scale the game board down, so there's fewer spaces, but even playing it 2, there wasn't as many opportunities. And there's definitely some factions that get huge benefits for being bumped, and you're like, nah, never going to pick that in a lower player count game.
Well, let me ask you this: has anybody played it at the full player count?
Did we play at 4, Roy, or 3?
We played it 3.
We played at 3.
I played it at 4. 5, I think, is the max player count, and I haven't done that one. And I would say that I wouldn't mind it too much because the game doesn't seem like it was too long. It didn't outstay its welcome, but it would just be a little bit longer in between turns. But yeah, I mean, more opportunity to bump.
I'm going to disagree pretty strongly with that, Chris. I've played it from 1 to 4, and I don't ever want to play it at 5. And I think 4 is going to be a carefully cultivated experience if I do play it at 4 again. I think the game is a bit long. I think that it's a game that I feel like you can kind of see, right? You can kind of see where the ending is coming, and you can actually influence that as a player. And I love that, where games aren't like necessarily a fixed number of rounds. But I do feel like the game, especially towards the end, drags a bit because people are trying to maximize every turn that they take, and they're agonizing over the order of doing things and how they're going to treat their workers. I think the game runs long at higher player counts. 3 is probably going to be my sweet spot for this.
I do want to mention that there is a high luck factor in this game, I feel like, as far as like Euros go. Some of those tiles are like really, really good. And then some of the stuff, if you time it just right, you can be like, okay, that tile's really good, it's really expensive, but this lets me get it for free, which lets me play 3 more tiles, and now I have this to activate that, and you can kind of combo stuff together that can kind of happen just because things were lined up really good on your turn. So you have to kind of pay attention to what's on the board and maybe try to stop those combos from getting too powerful, maybe take a piece out of that with your action so that somebody else isn't able to like chain all that stuff together. Because like you can have really bombastic turns if you're able to get the right tiles at the right time.
That's actually my biggest negative for this game, is that, that lineup of tiles can be useless to you, or it can be amazing and give you so many points. And so there is that really high luck in it, which is, it's fine, I think, for this game, and it works, but I think you have to go in there knowing that.
And I think that's why I really enjoy this game more, is because I really like luck in my Euro games. I like the indeterminate stuff in games. You know, if things are like completely always obvious and always like level, it like for me it's not as exciting. Sometimes like, oh, that tile, there's the tile. I gotta figure out a way to get it before Wendy gets it, and Wendy gets it, and then it's like okay.
I think this is a game that will feel at times, it'll feel imbalanced, right? We're like, oh man, I can't believe we revealed these amazing tiles for Wendy, and she just got like 3 of them and stuff, right? But what I've found is at the end of the game, points-wise and such, the spread doesn't tend to be too wide.
That's true.
If you play decently competent against another person who's playing around the same level and they luck into a few tiles, they might win by like 10 points. You might have been able to do a few things to kind of finagle those 10 points. But I'll give a very specific example of when it felt imbalanced, but I'm sure that it was roughly in the level of balance. Is I got my starting player power. And I was like, this sounds cool. I get an extra income every time I recall my workers. And Wendy's starting power was get 2 blue tiles for free, one of which was my power. I thought, why? Why would that be in the game? But that faction starts with fewer workers and fewer resources. That doesn't feel as... It doesn't feel as balanced, but I'm sure that it actually is because there is compensation for those different
Right, and you play that
powers.
her same faction, a different game. There would be blue tiles out there. She have different options for different things, you know. So it's like, oh, well, that's just the game you played this time, and that's kind of what happened. I also love that there's so many different B factions in this. You have so many different opportunities to try out different ones and have different powers, and they all have slightly different powers. Some of them are just victory points, like in-game scoring type stuff, and then some of them are like, oh, they switch up how workers work, or like you have more or less workers sort of thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, the recommending started ones are very vanilla,
Right.
but they're still good.
Yeah, I like that as well, although it does open the game up a bit to those complaints about being unbalanced. Oh, this faction is clearly overpowered. Whatever. I mean, I always think that that's a bit overblown, and I haven't played all the factions, so I can't really speak to it here. The ones I have played and played against have seemed relatively balanced to me. I didn't see anything that I was like, well, that's clearly way off. So I can't speak to it fully, but first, several games have not presented an issue there. The one last thing I wanted to talk about before I'm assuming we'll get to final thoughts in a bit is those, I think they're called the carve tiles, right? The ones you can only get with the level 4 workers. What are your impressions on those? Because they're very powerful tiles, of course, or else, you wouldn't have to put a level 4 worker there. But they kind of dictate a direction you're going to want to go, but you don't start with them, right? So it's something that kind of, you have to have already established what you're doing a little bit in the game before you start going for those. Does that create an issue for any of you?
I found them kind of interesting. One of the games that I played was I had a faction where I got extra points for having those kind of tiles. And it's like, man, I have to get honey, and honey's not that easy to get, and to get those tiles, and it has to be with a level 4 worker specifically. And I really wanted those type of tiles around my starting area or whatever, or my starting tile. But yeah, I think the fact that there's a lot of variety in them is cool, but sometimes they're just hard to get, and you have to really figure out how to combo them with the rest of your tiles as well.
I think that setting up those bee dances can be pivotal if you want to go heavy carving, because then you can make it very cheap to get that honey.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
But you still have to level up the workers. There's still a lot of work to get those tiles.
And then you establish the dance, so you get a little benefit every time someone goes there. But is that worth it if they can get 18 endgame points? Right. I think that they are another facet where the game feels really volatile and swingy, but to be fair, they're all out there at the beginning of the game.
Right.
You want to work towards that and get it.
Get there first.
Get there first.
Yeah.
So I think that we should, at this point, probably jump into final thoughts. Mike, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Sure, why not? I'll start it off. Many of the issues, well, that's going to make it sound bad. The issues I have with the game are things that we've already kind of talked about. My biggest issue with the game is not a thematic disconnect, because, it's a Euro game. I feel like it's fine on the theme end. I don't necessarily, again, I didn't really feel that connection to bees, but obviously Chris did. My biggest issue, I think, is, one, the game length. I feel like, this is a game that can be very AP inducing, and with that, and at the end of the game feeling like the longest part of the game, I just feel like it can overstay its welcome. And obviously Chris did not feel that way, but that's how I felt in my plays of the game. I think it's a lovely production. I feel like it has a ton of replay value, as Roy specifically has been mentioning, that there's a lot of different powers you can play with. The tiles, there's a ton of tiles. I don't think you're ever going to feel like every game is exactly the same. You're going to have multiple paths of victory. You're going to be able to try out different strategies. That's a positive. I'm going to give the game a 7.5. I do recommend the game, but I do think that it is in a it's in an area, a gaming area, that there's a lot of other ones out there. So even the things that feel novel, specifically the bumping and the kind of the progression of your workers, it's out there. But it works in this game. And you can't necessarily ding a game because there are elements that feel familiar to you. And in many ways, that could be a positive. So I enjoy the game. I don't know that it's going to be one that I'm going to play over and over and over again. That's why I'm sitting at a 7.5. I can recommend it, clearly. I actually like the fact that I think it's easy to teach. And so that's a positive. Even though there's quite a bit going on, you can pretty easily teach the game. So 7.5 for me. Solid game. I'm
also going to be coming in at a 7.5. I think that we've discussed some of the issues, like Mike said, right? It can drag a little bit long, but it's not too bad for me. The biggest thing is I do get frustrated sometimes playing it because of those feelings of the volatility of the tile market and everything. But otherwise, it's a clever game, and I appreciate the fact that it is driven a bit by player interaction. If someone's doing well, stop bumping their workers. Figure out a way to kind of get what you want without benefiting that person so much. And so it's not completely an efficiency puzzle. There is that, but then there's also the other players at the table do matter. I think that's a good thing. It's not one I'm going to be pulling out first. There's a few other games I think as well, but I do appreciate what it's doing, and it is fun. So 7.5 for me.
Okay, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love the production value doesn't tend to like be a big important thing to me, but I like that the production value is there with the bees. I really enjoy that positive interaction of the bumping, and I think that there's some really cool moments, like Roy was saying, like it can be kind of swinging how those moments happen, but when you get to do
When you're the one doing
big
it,
turns, it's a lot of fun. It's a ton of fun to be able to put out a bunch of tiles or re-trigger a tile you already played that was a really good tile for you. And I like that you can specialize. I like that you can focus in on something, and you can work on the engine building with those blue tiles and get tons of abilities to the point that you may forget to use them. Or you can get the red tiles and you can get a lot of those one-time really big moments that feel good. Or you can really work on building up those resources and collecting stuff and getting that honey. Like there's so many different ways that you can choose to pick in strategies and different, dabble in a little bit of everything or really focus in on one way. And so I think that there's a lot that it has to offer.
Well, and to add to that, those cards, we haven't really mentioned that. Those are huge. If you're completely ignoring those because you're like efficiency puzzle, no, get those cards.
Yeah.
'cause they're
Yeah, the cards are
huge.
super cool. And if nothing else, they're just a wild.
Cool ways. For me, I'm giving this an 8. I mean, I'm not normally the Euro game player. I do love space in games, but Euro games are not normally a thing that I gravitate towards. But if I'm going to play a Euro-style game, I like it to be like exciting and have interesting luck and high interaction like this one has. And like even though it's like interaction that just helps someone else when you bump them, it's still very interesting to like figure out that puzzle, and like you're all moving the same worker bee thing to get resources over here. It's like okay, they moved it there, now I can get to the tile that I need to. That sort of thing is all very interesting to me. And the fact that it has a little bit of area control in there as well, it's like, okay, they put 1 on there. Do I double down on that, or do I go to a different spice? There's just all that stuff that finds it very interesting and exciting for me. So I'm giving Apiary an 8. I just find it enjoyable. It gives me an Alien Frontiers-ish vibe, even though there's not dice rolling, and that dice, the side of the worker still does kind of determine where you're allowed to put it. If it's a 4, you get extra special abilities for different places. I just really enjoy how the game comes together, so 8 for me.
All right, well, there you go. With a high score of an 8.5, Apiary is getting a seal of excellence from us here at the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for coming out to this review. My name's Chris Yee.
I'm Roy Canning.
I'm Wendy Yee.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
Make that honey.
Bees!